Hello, I am Leave Nelson B, musician for Lonely Ghost Records, and this is Tellin with Alan. Here, we will go over recent Lonely Ghost releases, as well as those from affiliated artists, in a quest to get liner notes that you cannot get in a digital era. I hope you enjoy. I'm gonna start recording, but we're probably gonna edit most of this portion out.
Yeah. Okay, so process for Icarus. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
I guess you.
yes, so yeah, being that this is the first time we're doing it, it's consequently going to be the worst time that we're gonna have doing it.
I'm
So
honored to be to be ground zero for this. No, that's not the right saying. Ground zero is a
yeah,
bombing.
there's some bad
That's
memories
not.
attached to that phrase.
That's not. Yeah. Honored to be the test dummy. I think I was square one. That's what I was looking for.
Well, that and
That's what I was like.
just me personally, I was very curious about this record, and I know like a little bit about like how it was recorded, but it's also like the most like the brightest dark record I've probably heard in a while. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Gonna Die Alone is a pretty bright, dark song.
Yeah. Let's talk about Gonna Die. Let's just get into it.
Okay.
All right, so
Yeah. So Gonna
so
Die.
yeah, the song is
Uh,
deceptive in the way that it sounds and the way in the subject matter. You
yeah,
know, and I'm glad it's titled the way it is. That way, it's not hidden, but like the way the song sounds, like
deceptive.
yeah, it's deceptive. So like, what was the process? What this is an intentional thing that you did, obviously. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I wrote that song in like 5 minutes actually, and then I recorded it. I demoed it immediately after, and I sent it to Kixie because around that time I had been doing bass for her album, All My Friends. So we were going back and forth just with a bunch of ideas, but mostly her to me. And she threw her thing on it. I'm like, this has to come out at some point. But yeah, the song itself, it was the day. It was either the exact day or like a day or two after there was all these talks about like, oh, we got to reopen the economy. People have to die for the economy to live. Those phrases were being thrown around, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like shocked. We're not even like we didn't even go a month into quarantine. We went like a week and a half, I think. And it's like, all right, we did like the best we could. Let's wrap it up. And it's not a conscious thing, but I never get like, I never kind of put my own political, social ideas into songs, but I couldn't really help myself with this one. Um, so there's a lot of like anti-capitalist messaging in the song as well. But yeah, the actual song is just about the world dying and well, the world dying and everyone living on it dying because a few people with a lot of money want us to, and I was bummed about it. But at the same time, with the bright dark contrast, um, it was unintentional until I realized what I was doing actually, because I did the chords first, and I just like messed around. I did that kind of folky, bouncy chord progression. I was like, this is cool. And then I actually started writing the lyrics, which is how I was feeling. It was very stream of conscious lyric writing. And I just put it onto the music. And as I was doing it, I was like, oh, this makes total sense because like I'm missing all my friends. It's springtime, like we should be doing having bonfires and stuff. And that kind of inspired the like acoustic only approach to the EP of like I want this group of songs to sound as social, like it's a sound like you're actually hanging out with people. Especially Gonna Die though, and I think Gonna Die especially just because it's more anthemic, and is much more people encapsulating rather than just like the way I am. You know what I mean? So that kind of turned the song into just this. I wanted it to, sound like the campfire. So I got the clapping. Kixie and we did multiple layered vocals, and it all just kind of came together like that.
So you mentioned Kixie. Like, who is this person?
You don't know Kixie?
Oh, I know Kixie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you're permission to use her records, but yeah.
Kixie is the queen of pop music herself, living and breathing. She is a very, very good friend of mine from Canada. We met over Twitter when I put out my first EP. She heard it on Reddit and DM'd me. And ever since, honestly, like that day, we've just kind of been musical. I don't want to say like colleagues, but we're really good friends on one level, but then on another, we're like everything we do musically. I'll send her any demos I have. She'll send me demos she has. And yeah, she's just the greatest. And I feel like if I say too much, I won't do her justice. I feel like the best way is to just listen to her music, to speaking to anyone that doesn't know who she is.
So yeah, this I will say this EP, at least from my point of view, it's definitely more social than your first EP. Like not in subject matter, just like it sounds like it was created with a social presence. You know what I mean? It sounds friendlier than than something about this change. And the songs are they're way brighter than say something like Simple Minded and Balanced and The Change You Wanted. Particularly. And they're also very poetic. You have a very poetic writing style, and it's very like you throw a lot of things at the listener at one time. Especially with the faster pace of the faster paced lyrical progression of this one as opposed to your first one. Which was one of the reasons why I thought you were way older than what you actually are. Because you are that good of a writer.
Well, thank you. I think John even thought. I remember, or Superdestroyer. Excuse me. This is going out to the public.
Yeah.
So, I remember, I would have been at school. This would have had to have been like a year and a half ago, maybe early in 2019. But Superdestroyer and I were talking, and he thought I was like 22, 23, and I hadn't even turned 19 yet. And I'm like, no, I'm 18. And he spent like the next 5 minutes, like not freaking out, but just like could not comprehend that I just told him I was 18. I think that's more of less of my writing style and more of just, I don't know, actually. God, I actually have no fucking clue why I thought I was old. But
it's very your music. Well, at least from my perspective, your music is very exemplary of like the best of what Midwest emo has to offer, and if you can even call your music that, like And it's probably the most professional of our records. Your records are probably the most professional sounding of our records. They're definitely the best sounding of our records.
We did talk yesterday. I said, or the other night, because I don't know about anyone else on Lonely Ghost, but I go into the studio. I actually didn't for Icarus though. Icarus was the only DIY record I've ever done.
But it sounds damn good. Like
you can thank Kixie for that.
Even her record sounds amazing. Like
yeah, she does her stuff. She mixes and masters her own stuff, which is
that's a lot to carry, especially also somebody very, very young. Like
That she's incredible. I could talk this whole interview about how great she is. Yeah, she's got that. There's that Kanye West line in Monster. He's a do the rap in the track, triple double, no assist. I think that's what Kixie is. But she's got the quadruple double though.
that record was great. It was definitely phenomenal. If I had that kind of talent and resources, I at that age I probably would be way better than I am now. But the next song, obviously Icarus, the song that the EP is named after. Um, could you explain the meaning of that one to me, and why Icarus was why Icarus was the tail that you latched onto for this one?
Um, that song is more about kind of that, like when I was in high school. I'm not sidetracking here. I'm talking before I'm actually thinking about what I'm gonna say. But when I was in high school, I was very I masked my incredible insecurity with braggadocious confidence. We'll put it that way. And then late in my high school career, I was bipolar as hell. So I had that tacked on top of it, and I was just a dick. I was like a huge asshole. And I was I was a douchebag to a lot of people. Not anything like, you know, just kind of like a high school bully-ish kind of way, I guess. I don't know. I was just a cocky prick. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
And so, it took a lot of time. Yeah. And I was like, damn, like I'm a piece of shit. I should fix that. But I still kind of write about it because I still have, feelings of guilt over it. And so Icarus is about more of a specific person that I was a douchebag to. But more, I guess, more of a general, I don't know. I am gonna sidetrack now because a lot of my lyric writing is not, at least when you look at a song, as any song of mine as a whole, it's not necessarily based around one thing, or like I'm not really like, okay, now I'm gonna write the second verse, now I'm gonna write the bridge. It's kind of like a lot of the way I write is I get a melody in my head, and then I get a line just pops into my head, and I just roll with what the line is. And a lot of the time it does have to do with what I've already written, but it makes it a little less like laser focused, I guess. Which is why I really, because I've done a few interviews now for Icarus, and people will ask me about the lyric writing, and it's always so hard for me to explain it. But it's very much, you're gonna have to edit the shit out of this video. I'm sorry, Nelson.
No, that's gonna be Superdestroyer doing that. You can do whatever you want. I don't give a shit, man.
So back to the subject.
But you're very like you say, like laser focus. You're very it's not like verbose in that kind of way.
Yeah.
It's very it's very purposeful. Like there's no like wasted line in your songs.
Yeah, I do not like filler lines. I've screwed myself over with how high of a pedestal I've put lyrics on in my life, I think. And I think that kind of contributes to why it took me like 20 months to release a second EP. It's because I just wasn't writing anything I liked, even though I'm sure I had like 9 songs I could have actually, used. It just like slows me down. So yeah. Yeah.
The things that I like, if I ever do lyrics again, because I haven't since I was like a teenager, a teenager in my early 20s, is that one thing I've learned is that from myself anyway, is that use the most 1,000 common English words. to get your
Yeah.
point across. So like that's something that I actually take more value in the older I get, because before I was like, you have a thesaurus around or whatever, to figure out what rhymes with for, what's another word for this, that way. But I don't know. It just seems like that stuff doesn't impress me that much. The vocabulary of a particular artist.
Mhm.
But why Icarus? Because I love Greek mythology, and like for a situation that you're describing, it seems like you could have went so many directions, like the punishment of Sisyphus or something like that, or Atlas, or you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
why Icarus?
Um, the and this is I was about to get to this until I went off on my tangent, but the hook itself, the whole I've flown close to the sun too many times, whatever, the second major's mine, wings burn through, major's mine. That part was inspired by I was watching Hamilton on Disney Plus with my mom because she really wanted me to watch it with her. And I couldn't tell you the Hamilton line. All I remember is that Icarus was in it. Um, and I was like, that line like piqued my interest. Like, oh, that's like a really cool, like, it's like, I like that use of Icarus. And I walked into this room. This is like my school room. Because I do school online. But I walked in here with my guitar and I wrote the words. I was like, flown close to the sun too many times. And um, then I just put it to the chords. And the next day, I was looking through my notes and I had the first verse to Icarus. I've had the first verse to Icarus written for over a year now, just like festering in my notes app. It's just there, um, along with the chords to that verse. I had that whole first verse part done, and I did. I was like, oh, I wonder if I could put the chorus on here. I'm getting off track because you're asking why Icarus. That's really why though. It was I liked the line and then it inspired it, and I wrote that, and I was like, this makes sense with this, so I put them together. But I also think that Icarus did kind of encapsulate that braggadocious nature I was writing about in that song, because Icarus was a cocky asshole. He's like, oh, I can fly. And then he flew too close to the sun and he died. But then I twisted a little bit where I'm not the one falling. It's more, the last line is I made yours mine. So it's like be almost as if he just ripped off his dad's wings and then his dad died. You know, that's the twist. My lyric writing professor would be proud of me for that twist because
Yeah,
he's
plus
always
it
all
kind of
about the
like
twist.
calls back to the previous song where like the attitude of like going out in public and during a pandemic and wanting to
Yeah.
like get hair, the whole haircut argument. you know I don't know how
I
because we went from really quick. Cause I'm from Ohio, you're from Indiana, like
Same thing.
regionally it's very 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 similar, and like we went quickly from everybody fighting out Walmart to stay inside to people literally,
Wanting
fighting to go, wanting to go drink, outside, and say like, why do you want to do this?
to which I will say that on the topic of kind of Gonna Die inspiring it, Gonna Die did totally, well, not totally, but it did inspire the second verse because I wrote that after I put the chorus to it because the the all three songs Gonna Die more blatantly, but the other but Icarus and Look to the Lights also have some very like I hate how the world is right now, anti-cap kind of lines because the very first half of that second verse was exactly what's going on is just keep away from me. I stay too sick, contagion's all I bring, lock me in quarantine and bury me when my pockets are clean, like especially the second half of that right there, "Bury Me When My Pockets Are Clean." Kind of, I don't know how much more blatant I could get there, but it's
Yeah.
like tucked in to the rest of the song.
Well, plus like the shit is funky, like especially if you're gonna die, like there's a rhythm in that song that is very apparent, despite the fact that it's an acoustic, uh,
Mhm.
acoustic uh, folk affair. You know what I mean? And it's something that you're really good at, even with the change you wanted was there's a rhythm associated with that song, and "Look to the Lights" is probably the more obvious. I would say more obvious to Kixie's contributions.
Yep.
Like this song could have been a duet if you really wanted wanted it to. You know,
Honestly, should have been. I didn't even think about that. That'd have been sick, actually.
you
But
know. But yeah,
yeah,
the song sounds great. It is probably my favorite song of yours that I've heard.
thank
And
you.
oh yeah, thank you. You know, but
um,
it's probably the most hopeful of them of this batch of songs.
it's like still sad, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
still sad, but
exactly.
it's still the most hopeful. But it's still like sonically very full, and despite the minimalism of it. And could you explain the decision to just go acoustic with this one, with the
Yeah.
CD
So
as a whole? And we'll get into like look to the lights in a minute here.
yeah, the fully acoustic idea. It's an idea I've had for a bit, um, that I never really thought I would do, but I really wanted to do like an acoustic only, self-recorded, like home recorded project at some point. I mean, I'm I'm not DIY at all, but the Twitter sphere you and I are in is at the very least DIY adjacent. Um, and it's just like, I see people doing everything at their own home, and it's really cool. Like Kixie does it. You do. I mean, you do everything on your own. Uh, Superdestroyer. I think everyone on Lonely Ghost does everything home recorded. Um, and it's just really like, I think that a home recording is encapsulates a much different feeling than recording in the studio. There's like, you can really kind of capture the energy better, I think, than in a studio. Because I had, before I recorded Icarus, I had just gotten, or after, yeah, I got my timeline. So right before I recorded Icarus, I had just recorded the third EP that's coming out sometime next year in Philly. And that's like the very super radio produced, like professionally done sounding thing, even more so than EP1 and the Half Full EP. This is, um, and I really learned a lot in that studio. But the one thing that when you're, anytime you're recording in the studio, it's like you got to get the perfect take. And if you don't get it, then you just overdub it until you get the perfect take. And my vocals were pitch shifted a little bit, or like tuned a little, not pitch shifted, but tuned. Um, and the drums have to be sounding, everything has to be sounding great and like perfect and cohesive. Um, and you can kind of tell just when you listen to any professionally recorded studio out, well, not any, but there is that feeling of like, you can tell it's a drum track over a guitar track over a bass track over some vocal tracks over, and it's like stacked, almost like when that high school science experiment with density, where it's like, yeah, they're all in the beaker, but you can kind of see the different parts. um, but doing the recording for Icarus, I just went to my friend Nathaniel's house, um, into his basement. He has a really, really nice microphone and also carpeted floors, which is why I went to his house. Um, and I just sat there with the guitar. And the intention was to leave mistakes on this album. because I had just spent the past 8 days perfecting and making sure there were no mistakes, I thought it'd be cool if there was a very obviously quick to make, quick to release, almost lazily recorded thing. And I think that having the least amount of instruments and the most minimal approach would bring that out the best, because then people don't have to focus on too many things. But yeah, that was kind of what really drove me to it. Was it started with just thinking it'd be cool, and then I really realized I wanted to do it after Philly, um, because I wanted to kind of capture that energy, and I thought that those three songs were pretty perfect to use.
And plus, there's a vulnerability there, you know,
Yeah.
when you do things like that. And I think back on the topic of the studio is that I think people romanticize the studio a lot, especially with like a lot of promotional, like a lot of our favorite bands have promotional shots in the studio, and then with like pads and paper and shit. Like, you're not writing shit in the studio. That shit's way too expensive. And it and you're going into the studio with something already done, already written,
Mhm.
already able to be tracked. Most of your studio time is going to be not even recording. It's going to be like miking up, a bunch of
Mhm.
SM57s to drum kits. Like, because I when I was in college, we tracked an EP from a band, and yeah, we tracked and engineered and ended up mixing the EP from a local band, and just seeing what the band was already prepackaged. They had these songs, they've been performing them for years. It made it really easy for us to do, and so like in the studio time was free for them because they were just they were our project for college. The college paid for the studio time, and seeing how much, because this is the same studio that Black Keys recorded Attack and Release.
Oh,
Like,
sick.
yeah, I got to mix stuff in that console. In fact, part of my first EP was mixed on that console. So that's
I think I remember you saying that in your, was that in the All Seen Eye podcast you talked about that?
I don't know if I ever talked about that, because like Paul Heyman, he was like the proprietor of the studio, and his father like left the studio to him. He's now passed away. I don't know if that studio is still even active anymore, but but yeah, like, yeah, Attack and Release was recorded at that studio. Grand Funk Railroad had like their major hits recorded in that studio, and like seeing what happened in this room, this dingy, this dusty, dingy room with these old equipment, and like seeing like like plate reverb and stuff like that, seeing like actual plates, not like circuitry, not like digital circuit, like actual like metal plates, in the room to do plate reverb. you know
Jeez.
Studios are expensive, and
Yeah.
home recordings, I think, at least as far as what I do, is pretty much more efficient. I can mix and master here in my home, and that part of that education I got in the studio allowed me to do that at home with that knowledge of what it
Mhm.
takes to do. Because mixing and mastering on Ampex tapes and is not the move. Like it's a process that's important to know, but it's part of what makes the studio uber expensive if you're doing an older studio, because like those things are not cheap, you know.
No.
But I think the home recording, at least with this record, you leave yourself vulnerable. You hear your more so than something about this has to change. You hear yourself breathing, which I did not realize the effect of that until like I listened to it for like the third or fourth time. Like actually like hearing you breathe on a record, when that's something that's usually like edited out or something you try to avoid. You tilt away from the mic to take it in, to take a breath. That even just little things like that you've pretty much left in this record. And especially in Look to the Light, because it's much more. It's definitely played in a lower key. and
Yeah. It's a little more spaced out as well. I'm not like,
it's the longest of the
yeah,
on the record.
Icarus, those verses is just like rapid fire. But yeah, Look to the Lights very much kind of really drilling it in, I guess, or yeah, taking my time to get through it. Um, yeah, it's funny. I on Look to the Lights, just while we're talking about it, and kind of how long it is. It's like it's almost 4.5 minutes long, and then the other two, I think Icarus just hits 3 minutes, and Gonna Die is like 2.5 minutes. Um, because the one thing I hate about my first EP, the thing I hate about the Half Full EP, and Something About This Needs to Be Changed, um, is how long I made those songs. Like Simple Minded did not have to be 5 damn minutes at all. Um, Backwoods, when I demoed it, it was about 6, and I did intend for that song to be long, but I just tracked it so slow. It's like 8 minutes. Balanced is like 4 minutes. So I was very aware of the time I was spending on these songs, because Something About This Needs to Be Changed is 6 tracks, but like 28 minutes. So that's like an average 3.5, 3 minute 45 for every song. But Look to the Lights, I didn't intend to be that long, to be 4 minutes long, because I don't want my songs to be that long anymore. But with the way it came out and with how slow it is, I think that the only reason I am okay with it being so long is because of the home recording nature to it. I think if I recorded that in the studio, I'd hate it. Is to be like, why did I just waste all this time for a super bright, EQ'd out acoustic guitar and shift like pitched vocals that sound way too pristine to be me over it. Um, yeah, and so I think that just to kind of tie it back into that home recording nature was the big thing, I think, that kind of helped me actually really like these songs. I don't think I would like either any of the 3 songs in any other capacity.
Well, plus it seems like the first two, there's a lyrical conclusion to it, whereas Look to the Lights, there's a emotional conclusion to it, and uh, especially with you hear Casey's voice more prominently on Look to the Lights than you do on others, on leading to a more vulnerable higher end to your more tenor and lower end,
Mm.
like. And could you explain like the decision to have a more emotional closure as opposed to a thematic closure, as opposed to like a lyrical closure to this song?
Um, I mean, honestly, it just kind of like felt like that was just the way to do it. There wasn't exactly too much of a conscious effort when I was writing it. Um, Look to the Lights itself is almost. I wrote at least the instrumental to it almost 2 years ago, and then finally finished it in September last year. So there wasn't too much. I wasn't even thinking about Icarus. Icarus didn't even exist yet as a concept when Look to the Lights was done. Um, as for kind of a conclusion to the EP itself, I guess more in like a track listing kind of way. Uh, I think that ending on a slow song is just the move. It's just the way to do it.
And there's no other way that this could have been
Uh-uh.
sequenced. No, there really isn't.
It's much easier when there's only 3 tracks. Gonna Die was very obviously going to be the first one. Look to the Lights was very obviously going to be the last one. If I actually, if this was actually, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. This was going to be a 4-song EP, and it might have been. However, I was tracking the 4th song, and keep in mind, as I was recording this, it was um, the first day we recorded, I spent 7 hours recording all my parts total over the course of 2 nights. Um, I had to leave to LA to visit my girlfriend 2 days. Like it was like Monday started recording, Tuesday I could record, Wednesday I'm leaving for LA for a month. And the plan was to push Icarus like out like fast. And it did come out fast. It came out well over a month ago now, and I tracked it in mid-July, late July. Um, so I'm like, I only have these 2 days to do it. Yeah, so it was like I started tracking the fourth song. As soon as we started recording, I'm on a time crunch, you know. The only thing that was reassuring me was like, oh, it's meant to be rough. You know, if I fucked up, I was like, that's fine. It's not a bad, it's not too bad of a mistake. So I started doing this fourth song and I recorded all the guitar for it and I started singing to it. I just could not sing to it. And I spent like 15 minutes on it. And I was like, no, this song's bad anyways. I don't want to do this
Yeah,
song.
my cutting room floor is huge. It is like it is like my walking into a basement. You have water up to your knees. Like my cutting room floor is pretty huge. But like,
I can imagine. Sorry but with just your style of music, because obviously we're on two different sides of the spectrum
well,
with our
then I
styling.
record during like 3.0. I recorded like mostly during the summertime, and it sounds like it was recorded in the summertime, whereas your EP sounds like a fall album. Sounds like a fall EP
You did,
recorded in.
yeah, tried that in December, January. So yeah, you can tell it was getting dark at 3 p.m. and I would wanted to
Yeah.
fucking yeah. Uh, but yeah. Anyway, I was just thinking like, because I've correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not uh, an electrical musician. I don't do electronic musician. But I feel like you could probably put ideas down quicker than the way I, at least with my process, you know, because you've got your instruments and everything already plugged into your guitar or not guitar, your computer, excuse me, and you're just like, all right, you make beats, right? I mean, that's you
I mean,
sample,
yeah.
you
I mean,
the
yeah.
rhythm.
That got like.
I'm like very offensively downplaying what you do, but like just from the
Oh
outside
no,
looking
no, no!
in.
But it's just music. If when anybody tries to like put like complexity in what I do, it's just music, doofus. It really is. It really is all that it is, and at least in how I feel about what I do anyway. What feels right, it feels right. What feels wrong. I'm not a trained musician. I don't know how to play things in a traditional sense. Like I said, a keyboard and tell you what chord is playing, but that's probably the most strange. I'm trying to learn the ukulele now, and that's a challenge since I like never like formally like knew things like that before, and I'm learning them now. So, and it's a ukulele, and it's kicking my ass. A 4 string, yeah. So, yeah,
You,
but
I can't ukulele,
it's
honestly.
fun. It is a lot of fun. Like I will say that, But yeah, I need to buy a bigger ukulele because that thing is tiny. And my hands are huge.
Yeah,
So,
you got to go with like a baritone ukulele. I think those things get pretty big. But my ukulele I got for $70, probably the size of my MacBook right now, just like literally this big. I'd bring it to school in high school. I was that kid, and I just put it in my backpack, and it fit in there perfectly in a tiny ass Vans backpack. And
wow,
yeah, I can't imagine being, I'm like 6'2" now. That thing is, I'd be like holding a baby, you know. I don't know.
yeah.
I'm just rambling on about ukulele sizes now.
So, in the spirit of liner notes, could you explain the artwork? Because the artwork is very like I really like the simplicity of the artwork and probably mirrors the simplicity of the music itself, the minimalism of it, but it communicates a lot, and it's somewhat similar to something about this needs to change, where it's just a singular figure with an imposing structure. Could you explain the motivation for the
Yeah,
artwork?
good job bringing us back on track, by the way. After the ukulele, But yeah, so the artwork, um, I commissioned my good friend Justin Cuneo um, to do it. And the way I did the art for Something About This Needs to Be Changed was I found this guy, Here Comes the Art, on Reddit. I just found he did a Kids See Ghosts alternate cover, and I saw it on a r/album covers when I was looking for like inspiration
Great
for
record.
that cover. One of my favorites, incredible. Um, and I saw it and I DM'd him. I'm like, hey, do you do commissions? He said, yeah, DM me on Instagram. We talked. I sent him, I had I only demoed Balanced, Simple Minded, and Backwoods from that. Like an actual demo, like in GarageBand or in Logic. And I sent him those 3 tracks with like the themes of the album or the record. And I was like, do whatever you want. Because I'm not a visual artist in any sense. All I knew was that this guy, like, I loved his style. I'm like, I really love your crayon art, that crayon thing you got. Everything else is fair game. Like anything you do, I'm gonna love it because I just love what I've seen from you. Um, and he got back to me maybe a month and a half, 2 months later, with, and the only reason I'm gonna say this, even though it's my album art, with like the coolest art I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm like honored that that piece of art is for my music. Um, and it had that big imposing circle right on it. Um, so going into Icarus, I wanted to do the same idea of hiring someone and being like, pretty much anytime I'm going to need art, it's going to be like, I'm trusting like the artist is going to do it. Even when I get a haircut, and if I want to do something different, I'm like, just like do whatever you want because you've been cutting hair for 40 years, and I don't,
You're obviously know more what's going on here than I do.
So with Justin, the only stipulation I gave him, because we already have the art for the third EP coming out, and I knew before we picked out the art for EP3 and before I hired Justin for the art for EP2 that I wanted these 3 EPs to be connected artistically with like the circle. Because I think that it'd just be cool if there was this kind of like era, almost the EP era, because I talk on Twitter all the time about how I'm done making EPs of just these circles. So I sent Justin the songs and the lyrics and the themes like I did with the original artist for EP1. I just said like only thing, make it a little low key because it's a low key album or record, and then I want a circle on it in the middle, and that's it. And just based on what just looking at it, you can tell he went with the Icarus thing. There's the man falling in the middle, and he penciled in the circles. I mean, if you talk to him, I'm sure he'd have a much better explanation of what. But from my side, all I told him to do was a circle in the middle, and I did actually tell him I wanted the name on the front because I don't know. I feel like it'd be cool to see that because the first one didn't have it. I was like, why don't we see the actual record's name on the front of the record?
Because it's just by itself, like the circle with a man, and it like it seems it's a dark visual, and you don't really know what it is until you see obviously Icarus on it, and a comedic conclusion to that, like, oh
yeah,
that thank God that's there.
Oh, it's a music album. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, do you have any thank yous that you would like to have?
Thank you.
Yeah, because that liner notes always have thank you sections.
They do, and
in engineering and publishing companies and whatever, But yeah, the thank you sections.
Again, the liner notes for the cassette, I did actually have a thank you. Well, first, I got to thank Kixie, of course, because this EP is hers as much as mine. She actually did easily more work than I did on it. All I did was I wrote the songs and I tracked the vocals and guitar, and then she did vocals, added some more instruments, mixed and mastered it. So a huge thank you to Kixie for literally everything always. Big thank you to my friend Nathaniel for letting me use his microphone in his house, for hitting the record button on the MacBook, so I didn't have to keep getting out of my chair. A big thank you to Justin for the art. Again, I've thanked him profusely. And then a thanks to Superdestroyer and Lonely Ghost, just because, you know, he's the one putting it out for me, and he's putting support behind it, more support than I could put myself behind it. Yeah, so thanks to all those people, and thanks to you, Nelson, for this interview. I appreciate it. I'm glad I could be the first person to test this idea out, and I hope it was everything you imagined.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. So I don't know what we're gonna call this. I think Ghost Files will be the the best. But yeah, it's been yeah. I actually like doing this. You know.
Yeah, this is fun. I don't do a lot of interviews, and I'm always excited when I get a chance to do one.